Welcome to Hidden Ties, where every story hides a deeper truth. I never expected to hear my father say those words. Your brother deserves it, especially not when he knew exactly what it would mean for me. But then, the bills arrived, and everything changed, so quickly it was hard to keep up with. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. I was 52 years old when it happened, sitting at my father's house on a sunny Thursday afternoon in the town of Laneyville, a sleepy little place that never seemed to change. The house sat on the edge of the woods, the same house I'd grown up in, the same place where my brothers and I spent summers chasing fireflies and arguing over who got the last piece of pie. My father, George, was 78 at the time, still sharp, still stubborn, and still keeping his opinions to himself unless you managed to poke him just right. I wasn't really there for any special occasion, just a visit. I'd been feeling a bit uneasy lately, something I couldn't shake off. My life had been a quiet one for the past few years. Divorced, 2 kids grown and out of the house, working a steady office job at the town hall, and a bit of a recluse by choice. I'd always been the responsible one, the one who kept things running, who took care of problems as they came. And that's why it was me sitting in that old recliner by the window, nursing a cup of tea, while my brother, Jonas, sat across the room, looking lost in his own world. Jonas was 3 years younger than me, but it felt like a lifetime between us sometimes. He had never settled down, always chasing the next thrill, the next wild idea. He'd been living with Dad for the past few months after his latest failed attempt at running some get-rich-quick business in the city. Honestly, I didn't think much of it. He had a habit of leaving messes behind, but Dad, being Dad, never kicked him out. I, on the other hand, had a different take on things. I believed in responsibility, paying your dues, and earning your way. But Dad had always had a soft spot for Jonas, a spot that seemed to grow softer with every failed venture. That afternoon, things seemed normal enough. The sunlight dappled through the trees outside, and we sat in silence, the air thick with the weight of things unsaid. Finally, it was Dad who broke the silence, his voice as steady as ever. "You know, Emma," he started, "I think it's time you stepped up. Help your brother out." I stared at him, taken aback. Help him out? Help him out how? Dad's face was stoic, but there was a slight twitch in his eye that made my stomach tighten. "He's your brother. He deserves a break." Deserves it? For what? I was getting frustrated now. I loved Jonas, I really did, but my patience had been wearing thin. He'd burned through every opportunity and dime anyone ever gave him. Dad didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out the window for a long moment, as if he was searching for the right words. When he turned back to me, his face was a mask of quiet resolve. "He's family, Emma. You've got your life together. You've always been the stable one. He needs someone to give him a hand." I tried to hold my tongue, but the words tumbled out anyway. "You know what, Dad? Maybe you're right. Maybe he does need help, but I'm not going to carry him forever. He's got to learn to stand on his own 2 feet. Dad didn't argue. Instead, he just sighed and looked down at his hands. That was when I knew nothing was going to change. He was always going to take Jonas's side. When I left that day, I didn't think much of it. It was just another conversation, another day of me feeling like I was always the one to clean up the messes. But I would soon learn that afternoon would come to define everything. 2 weeks later, the phone call came. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping on a cup of coffee, when my phone buzzed across the wood. The name flashing on the screen made my heart skip a beat. Dad. I hadn't heard from him since our conversation, and the knot in my stomach tightened. "Hello?" I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Emma, it's your brother?" Dad's voice was tight, like he was trying to hold back something. I could hear a faint crackle of static in the background. He's in trouble." My mind raced, but I kept it together. What kind of trouble? What happened? There was a long pause before Dad spoke again, his voice heavier this time. It's the bills. The ones he's been ignoring for months. They hit today, Emma. They're threatening to take everything, and I don't know what to do. My heart sank. I knew Jonas had been careless with money. Hell, he'd been careless with almost everything. But I never thought it would come to this. What do you mean, take everything? Dad's voice wavered as he continued. They're threatening to seize his car, his bank accounts. They've already sent letters to the house. And, Emma, I can't help him with this one. I'm too old, and I don't have the money anymore. A rush of frustration hit me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have helped, Dad. I was pacing around the kitchen now, feeling the weight of everything pressing on me. But now? Now you want me to jump in and fix it? There was silence on the other end, and I knew my father well enough to understand that the pause wasn't because he didn't have an answer. It was because he knew exactly how this would go. He was setting me up, like he always had. I thought you'd want to help him, Dad said, his voice so quiet it almost broke my heart. He's your brother, Emma. He's always been my responsibility, but now, it's your turn. The words hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating me. It wasn't fair, none of it was. But I'd heard this before, how Jonas was always the one to be saved, how I was always the one who had to clean up the messes. The bills weren't a surprise. I had seen the way Jonas handled money, the way he drifted from one crisis to another. But hearing my father beg me to step in, to bail him out, again, was the breaking point. I slammed my fist down on the counter. I can't keep doing this, Dad. He's an adult. He has to face the consequences of his actions. If I keep saving him, he'll never learn. I hung up without waiting for a response. I knew it was harsh, but I was done. Done with being the responsible one. Done with being the one to put out everyone's fire. I had my own life, my own problems, and I didn't need to fix Jonas's messes anymore. But even as I tried to walk away from it, the knot in my stomach tightened. Because deep down, I knew I would be forced to make a decision, one that would change everything. A few days passed after the phone call, and every time I tried to focus on something, work, chores, or even just catching up on TV shows, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing. It was like the calm before a storm, only the storm was coming, and I knew it. Then came the letter. It was late in the afternoon when I found it sitting on my porch, wedged between the screen door and the frame. It was official-looking, thick, heavy paper that screamed bad news. My stomach dropped when I saw the sender, the bank. I opened it quickly, the words jumping off the page. Final notice, foreclosure proceedings have begun. I stared at the letter for a long moment, not fully processing it, before the weight of it hit me. This wasn't just about Jonas's bills. This was about our father's house. Dad was in trouble too, and as usual, it was up to me to fix it. I took a deep breath, trying to gather myself. What had I just read? I glanced back at the letter. It wasn't just about Jonas anymore. It was about family. I called Dad, even though I didn't want to. I couldn't avoid it forever. Hello? His voice was hoarse, like he'd been drinking something strong, or maybe he'd been holding back tears. It wasn't like Dad to sound this way. Usually he was so composed, so certain. But now he sounded fragile. Dad, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I got the letter about the house. There was a long pause, and when he spoke, his words came out slow, like he was trying to build up the courage to say them. I thought it was just Jonas, but it's my fault, Emma. I should have told you sooner, but I couldn't. I didn't want to worry you. I clenched my jaw. Worry me? You think I wouldn't have helped if you'd asked? You always hide things from me, like I can't handle it, like I'm the one who can fix everything while you just sit there. I could hear the regret in his voice. I never meant to put that on you, Emma. But your brother? He's been having problems for so long, and I thought he'd turn things around. I didn't know it would get this bad. I wanted to scream, to tell him how wrong he was, but the anger didn't come. Instead, I felt something worse, pity. Not for Jonas, no, he had made his own bed. But for my father, who was too proud, too stubborn, to ask for help until it was too late. I wasn't sure if I felt more sad or angry. "How much?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 50,000, Dad said, his voice cracking. "I've been making payments, but I couldn't keep up. They're coming for the house, Emma. It's over. $50,000. I didn't even have that much saved up in my entire life. But this was Dad. And for better or worse, I couldn't just let him lose everything. Don't worry about it," I said, my voice tight. "I'll figure something out. Just try to keep it together for now, okay?" I hung up, my hand still gripping the phone long after the call ended. The weight of everything settled over me like a thick fog. I knew what I had to do. I had to be the one to save everything. But that didn't mean I had to like it. Later that night, I sat at my desk, staring at the numbers on the calculator in front of me. My bank account wasn't anywhere near what I needed, and borrowing that kind of money was out of the question. I couldn't put my life on hold forever just to keep bailing out a family that didn't seem to understand how to stand on its own. And then, just as I was about to give up, the phone rang again. This time, it was Jonas. "Emma," he said, his voice barely recognizable. It was the first time I'd heard him sound vulnerable. "I need help. I don't know what to do. They're going to take everything." I could hear the panic in his voice, and for a moment, I felt that old protective instinct kick in. But then, the memories hit me, the years of him ignoring responsibility, of expecting others to clean up his messes. I couldn't ignore that anymore. "You need help?" I said, my voice hard. "Well, Jonas, maybe it's time you face the music. You've been running away from your problems for too long." There was a long pause. He didn't speak for a while, and I could hear him shifting around on the other end. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "I'm not asking for you to fix it, Emma. I'm asking for a chance to fix it myself. I know I've messed up, but I'm trying. I swear I am." Something about the way he said it made my heart tighten. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe I just wanted to believe that he could turn things around. But I wasn't ready to forgive him yet, not completely. "Jonas, this isn't just about you anymore," I said, my voice shaking. "It's about Dad, about everything. I can't keep doing this for you. You need to figure this out. You need to stand up and be the person you've always run from." The silence on the other end was thick. Then, in a small, almost desperate voice, Jonas said, "I don't want to lose everything, Emma. Please." The call ended, and I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. My mind kept swirling back to what Dad had said. "Your brother deserves it." Maybe that was the truth. Maybe Jonas deserved to face the consequences of his actions, even if it meant losing everything. But I didn't know if I could live with the fallout of that. I didn't have the answer. Not yet. The following week felt like I was living in a fog. Everything I did felt mechanical, as if I was just going through the motions. The house was quieter than usual. My kids were busy with their own lives, and I was trying to focus on my work at the town hall, but my thoughts kept circling back to Jonas and Dad. The debt, the house, the bills. Everything seemed like a storm that I couldn't outrun. Then came the letter from the bank. It wasn't just a warning this time. It was the final notice. They were going to take the house in 30 days if the payment wasn't made. I stared at the letter, feeling my frustration bubbling up again. The same old pattern. I knew Jonas was incapable of handling this alone, but I was getting tired. So tired of being the one to fix everything, of carrying the weight of everyone else's mistakes. And the guilt that weighed on me for even thinking that way was suffocating. But that night, as I sat on the couch, my phone rang again. I didn't have to look at the screen to know who it was. I had come to expect it by now. "Emma," Jonas said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm in trouble." I closed my eyes for a moment, steeling myself. "Jonas, I don't have the energy for this anymore. You've been in trouble for years, and nothing changes. I know, he replied quickly. But this time, it's different. I'm really trying to fix it, Emma. I swear. His voice, usually so careless and flippant, was filled with something I hadn't heard before: desperation. The kind that stripped away the bravado and left only raw, unpolished emotion. What do you need from me? I asked, more tired than angry now. I wanted to believe him, but the part of me that had spent so many years picking up the pieces was afraid to. Afraid to give him one more chance and have it slip through my fingers. I don't have anywhere to turn, he said. I need you to co-sign a loan, just for the house. I promise I'll pay you back. I can't lose everything. Not this time, Emma. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Co-sign a loan? That meant I would be responsible for it if he couldn't pay it. That meant I'd be tied to his failure in ways I wasn't sure I was willing to be. I sat there for a moment, the phone pressed to my ear, and I could almost hear the sound of my own pulse racing in my ears. My stomach twisted as I thought about it. The stakes were higher now. This wasn't just about bailing him out of a jam anymore. This was about risking my own security for someone who'd already proven time and again that he didn't know how to keep things together. I can't do that, Jonas, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. You have to figure this out on your own. You've had every chance to change, to fix things, and it's always the same. I can't keep picking up the pieces. There was silence on the other end of the line, and I thought the call had dropped. But then he spoke, and this time, his voice was broken. Please, Emma, I need you. That was it. The breaking point. I wanted to say no. I wanted to put my foot down and refuse to be dragged back into his mess. But I couldn't. Not when he sounded like that. Not when it was clear that, for the first time, he wasn't just asking me for money. He was asking me for something deeper, for trust, for the hope that maybe, just maybe, he could get it together. I'll help, I said, my voice low. But this is the last time. I won't be your crutch anymore. You understand? Jonas's breath on the other end was shaky. Thank you, Emma. You won't regret it. I swear. I hung up without another word, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know if I had just made the right choice or the worst one of my life, but the weight of it all was unbearable. The next day, I found myself sitting at the bank, signing the loan paperwork. My hand trembled as I signed my name next to Jonas's, feeling like I was tethering myself to a sinking ship. But I had made my decision. I would help him one last time, and after that, I was done. I couldn't go back. I had already given him too much of myself. But then, just as I thought I had done the right thing, the unexpected happened. The call came from Dad. Emma, his voice crackled through the phone. Jonas, he's in trouble again. Worse than before. It's not just the money, it's something else. I was still processing the weight of the loan, my hand still shaking from the decision, when the call from Dad came. I thought I was prepared for anything. I thought I had everything under control. But as soon as I heard Dad's voice crack through the line, I knew I was about to be pulled into something I couldn't escape. Emma, Dad said, his voice strained and urgent. It's worse than I thought. You need to come over now. It's about Jonas. I could feel my chest tighten as I glanced at the clock. The day had barely started, and already it was falling apart. What happened? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Dad was quiet for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his words were slow and heavy. I didn't know, Emma. I didn't know about the gambling. He's been hiding it for months, and now the loan sharks are involved. My breath hitched. Gambling? I had never even considered that, but it explained so much. The reckless spending, the debts piling up, the sudden need for money. I felt my stomach churn as everything began to make sense, like pieces falling into place that I never knew existed. I'm on my way, I said before hanging up abruptly. The drive to Dad's house felt like a blur. My mind was racing through all the scenarios. How far had Jonas fallen? Could I fix this? How much of a fool had I been for believing, even for a second, that helping him out of his mess would make a difference? When I finally pulled into Dad's driveway, I noticed that the blinds were drawn tightly, the windows dark. A feeling of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. Dad was always the kind of person who greeted everything with a quiet stoicism, but today, he was hiding. I knocked on the door and Dad opened it slowly, his eyes hollow. The weight of whatever had happened was written all over his face. He stepped aside without a word, and I walked in, already dreading what was about to unfold. "Where's Jonas?" I asked, scanning the living room. It looked normal, too normal in fact, but the silence felt off, the calm before the storm. "He's upstairs," Dad said softly. He came to me, Emma. He was desperate, begging. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want you to find out like this." I nodded, trying to steady myself. The air was thick with tension as I made my way to Jonas's room. My hand hovered over the doorknob, and for a split second, I almost turned away. But this was my brother. I had to face whatever mess he'd gotten himself into. I opened the door. Jonas was sitting on the bed, his head in his hands. He looked different, smaller, weakened. Gone was the usual arrogance, the cocky attitude. His shoulders were hunched and his eyes were red, rimmed with tears. "Emma," he said, his voice cracking, "I didn't know how to tell you." I stepped into the room, the door clicking shut behind me. My heart ached as I watched him. This wasn't the Jonas I knew. This was someone broken, someone who had reached the edge and was looking into the abyss. "Tell me what, Jonas?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could feel my pulse quicken. Jonas looked up, his eyes pleading. "I'm in deep, Emma. You don't understand. The loan sharks, they're serious. I owe them more than I can pay back. And if I don't get the money soon—" He trailed off, and I finished the sentence for him. "They'll come for you." Jonas nodded. "They've already been to the house. They left a note, Emma. They're threatening to hurt me, and worse, if I don't come up with the money." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't exaggerating. This wasn't a game, and I was standing on the precipice of something dark. "You should have told me sooner, Jonas," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check, but the words slipped out harder than I intended. "You should have asked for help before it got this bad." He shook his head desperately. "I couldn't, Emma. I didn't want you to hate me. I didn't want you to think I couldn't handle it." I let out a frustrated sigh, walking over to him. "Jonas, I don't hate you. I just don't know how much more of this I can take. You keep dragging me into your mess and I keep fixing it, but you're never learning. You never change." Tears welled up in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." I felt the weight of his apology, but it wasn't enough. Not after everything. My mind was racing. What could I do? What should I do? I was trapped between wanting to help my brother and wanting to protect myself from the consequences of his choices. "You have to get out of this, Jonas," I said, my voice finally breaking. "You can't keep running. You have to face this on your own, and I can't keep saving you." He stood up, stumbling slightly, and grabbed my arm, his grip desperate. "Please, Emma, please don't turn your back on me now. I'm begging you." I stared at him for a long moment, my heart torn in two. I had always been there for him. Always. But this was different. I had given him so many chances, and maybe, just maybe, this time I had to let him fall. "I can't do it anymore, Jonas," I whispered. "You have to figure it out yourself. You have to live with your choices." His face crumpled as he let go of my arm, his shoulders shaking as he sat back down on the bed, his head in his hands again. And in that moment, I knew that my decision was final. I couldn't keep carrying the weight of everyone's failures. And yet, as I walked out of that room, as I left him behind, I felt a sting of guilt that I couldn't shake. Could I really just walk away from my brother, knowing that he was standing on the edge of losing everything? The answer, I realized, was yes. I had to. I didn't sleep that night. The quiet in my house felt deafening as I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the old coffee mug in front of me, long cold and forgotten. The decision I made, leaving Jonas in that room, leaving him to face the consequences alone, kept gnawing at my insides. But deep down, I knew it was the right choice. I couldn't be his savior anymore. He had to be the one to take responsibility for his life. But that didn't make it any easier. I woke up the next morning, the sun streaming in through the windows as if the world hadn't changed. I went through my usual routine: coffee, breakfast, a few calls at work, pretending like everything was fine. But nothing felt fine. I hadn't heard from Jonas all day, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right call. By the time I got home, the phone rang. It was Dad. "Emma, I need to talk to you. It's about Jonas. He's gone." My heart stopped. Gone? What do you mean gone? I don't know what to say. He just disappeared. I went to check on him, and his room was empty. He left a note. I felt the blood rush from my face. A note? What did it say? There was a long pause before Dad spoke again, his voice unsteady. He said he was sorry and that he was going to fix things on his own. He said he didn't want anyone to stop him this time. He didn't want anyone to get hurt. My chest tightened. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to accept it. But something in the pit of my stomach told me it was true. Jonas had left. For good this time. I hung up the phone without saying another word, my hands shaking. I didn't know what to do. Part of me was relieved that he was finally taking responsibility for himself. But the other part of me, the part that had been his protector for so long, felt like I had lost him. I drove over to Dad's house again, my mind spinning. I walked through the front door and found him sitting on the couch, staring at the note in his hand, his face pale. "Dad," I said softly, taking a seat beside him. "What are we going to do?" Dad didn't answer at first, just looked at the note again. "I don't know, Emma, but I've spent so many years bailing him out, and now he's gone. It's like I don't even know him anymore." I nodded. "I know, Dad, but we can't fix this. Not this time. He's made his choice." The words stung as I said them, but I knew they were the truth. Jonas had made his decision, and now he had to live with it. I couldn't keep carrying the weight of his mistakes. The next few days were a blur. I kept myself busy with work, with errands, with everything that had always been a distraction. But it didn't change the fact that Jonas was gone. It didn't change the fact that, despite everything, I had to accept that he was no longer the person I could rely on. And then, a week later, the final blow came. The bills. They arrived in the mail, the ones that I had been avoiding for months, the ones I had hoped would go away, the ones I had co-signed for, the ones that were now mine to pay. I sat at the kitchen table again, the same cold coffee mug in front of me, staring at the bills with a sick feeling in my stomach. How had it gotten to this point? How had I allowed myself to get so deep into this mess, to risk everything for Jonas? I didn't have the answers, but as I stared at the numbers on the page, I realized one thing. I couldn't keep paying for his mistakes. I couldn't keep bailing him out. And now, I had no choice but to face the consequences of my own decisions. I didn't know where Jonas was or what he was doing, but I knew one thing for sure. This was the end. The end of trying to fix everything. The end of being the one everyone turned to when they needed saving. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't relief exactly, but it was something that told me I had finally let go. The phone rang again, and for a moment I didn't want to answer, but I did anyway. "Emma!" It was Dad. "Jonas came back." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean he came back?" "He showed up at the house this morning. He's clean. He's sober. He said he was going to pay off the debts himself. He's going to do this on his own, Emma." I didn't know what to say. The relief that I had been expecting didn't come. Instead, I felt numb. I had been waiting for this moment for so long, waiting for Jonas to take responsibility. But now that it was here, I didn't know what to feel. "I'm proud of him," I said quietly, though the words didn't feel real. "I just hope he means it this time." "You and me both," Dad replied. For the first time, I realized something. I had given everything I could to Jonas, and now it was his turn. His turn to fix his own life. His turn to make the choices that would define his future. And as for me, I was going to start focusing on my own. No more rescuing, no more fixing, just living. The weight that had been holding me down for so many years had finally lifted, and in its place I felt something new, something that felt like freedom, the end of being the one everyone relied on, the end of being the fixer, and for the first time I could breathe.